Greek, then we tend to agree. And we're going to see in the tour today how we all have inherited a love of the Greek culture. And we tend to agree. Okay. We're going to see in the tour today. Let's close this. Okay. I'm going to put the chat so that it can only come to me. And I'm going to mute you all. That way we don't unnecessarily interrupt one another. And I'm going to share the presentation for tonight. Welcome, friends, to another episode of my virtual Bible tour presents. This recording is very special to me. My dear friend Jim Lindsay, who was the creator of the tour that you're about to see, he presented this tour to a sold-out audience for many, many days, months, and since 2020, all the way until his last days here on Earth, which was in 2023. Right before he died, he asked me if I could record the tours because he wanted the friends to continue to benefit from the research and the work that we have done here as a group. So we hope you like it. And Jim, we hope to see you in paradise very, very soon. So the tour is called It's All Greek to Me. As you heard from Jim before, feel free to take the Zoom ID, which doesn't change it to share it with anybody who loves virtual tours, who love free stuff, and to also who loves history. This is the goal of the tour today. We definitely believe that sharing is caring. Jim never got to see this, but we talked about it. We knew the virtual tours were going to come to some end at some point. So we went back to the museum. So if you are in New York or if you are in Washington, we will be more than happy to have you as our guests at the Met or at the Museum of the Bible in Washington. But if you decide to travel with us, with me and my wife, we have a trip in October to Greece, which is what we're going to be talking about here tonight. Let me give you a small preview of what that trip may look like. Please pay attention to your monitors. So it's going to be a mixture of land and cruise. We are going to do some walking, but most of the time we're going to be on a cruise, saving valuable time. The goal of this cruise or this trip is to take you to all the congregations that Paul visited or Paul have any interaction. Our central location is going to be the city of Athens. We're going to go to the branch of Jehovah's Witnesses in Greece. We're going to visit there and get a tour. We're very excited about that. We're going to go to Corinth, the pillar where Paul stood, or the congregation where he sent two letters. We're also going to go to Philippi and Thessalonica. Again, Philippi was the place where Paul actually started preaching in what today we call Europe. In Thessaloniki, it's the first letter that Paul will write to the Christian congregation. If you look at your Bible and you look at the year, the first letter to the Thessalonians was the first letter that Paul actually wrote. We're also going to see other areas in Greece, beautiful areas full of Bible history. And now, right now, you're seeing Asian Berea, where Paul preached to people who really wanted to live according to what the Bible had to say. From the city of Athens, we're going to take a cruise. And in that cruise, we're going to stop by several islands like Ephesus, the congregation of Ephesus, and also the island of Patmos, where the Apostle John will spend his last days. And again, you're going to be together with a group of friends, not only myself and my wife, but also with other friends that have been presenting virtual tours since 2020. It's going to be a family affair, a small group. So if you can travel and you want to join us, feel free to send me a text or an email, or let me know if you want to join us on this trip, and my wife and I will be more than happy to help you with that. So, it is also worth noting, I think I already mentioned, there are a ton of videos. Some are for free, others are for members, but it's only $4.99. For example, we did a whole episode about Nineveh and the no so great adventure of Jonah. We're also working on a virtual tour in about Daniel, and you'll be able to see all of that on our YouTube channel. So please subscribe. If you don't know how to subscribe, call the number on your screen and somebody will be able to help you. Thank you, friends. Thank you very much for all the support, not only that you have given me, but all the tour guides on my virtual Bible tour. We have a simple motto, and it is to bring history to life. Okay? The tour that I'm going to be presenting tomorrow is it's still all Greek to me. It talks more about the fascinating Greek culture. It's the same time, the same Zoom ID as the one that you see today. The passcode, it's right there on the screen. Write it down. I don't change it. It's usually the same. And to be honest with you, my meeting ID is my phone number. So it's 914-469-8548. You can send me a text. I prefer text rather than calling, because if you call and I'm in the middle of a meeting, I won't be able to answer. But if you send me a text, I will be able to respond to you. So, Rebecca, I hope you are able to see the Zoom ID on the screen. Welcome, everyone. The name of the tour is It's All Greek to Me. If you're taking notes, or if you miss something, or I don't do a good job explaining something, I will have a question and answer at the end of the tour, like I normally do. And at that time, you can get another opportunity. It is my pleasure to say tonight, good evening, good afternoon, and in some cases, good morning for all of you who are joining from all around the world. We will talk about Greece and its history and culture. I think it's only fair to warn you that there is a lot of information on this tour. The Greek were very busy people, but be comforted knowing that there will not be a test at the end of this virtual tours. Besides, we will take a little break halfway to go to the bathroom, stretch our legs. So right now, the only thing I could ask you is please get comfortable, and I hope you enjoy the tour. Most of us are familiar with the saying, it's all Greek to me. But do you know where the modern English usage comes from? We're going to do something you probably have not done in other virtual tours. We're going to talk about the history of this phrase. The history of this phrase has been penned to the modern English usage when William Shakespeare used it in his 1599 play, The Tragedy of Julius Caesar. It is in Act 1, Scene 2, if you're taking notes. What does it mean? It means the inability to understand Greek has also led to other English word. For example, hablar en gringo. It's Greek to me. It also means hablar en gringo, which is a commonly phrase when referring to someone who doesn't speak Spanish. Gringo is actually a phrase that was originated from the land where the United States have forced themselves into. And since their uniform was green, people will scream Green, go home. Green, go home. Anyway, what does that have to do with the Greeks? It is comforting to know that even the Greeks have trouble understanding other people. Anybody who will come to Greece and will not speak Greek, they will be considered a barbarian. And you will find this word in the Bible. Yes, Paul is the one who makes reference to this. And what does exactly barbarian means? It means someone that doesn't speak Greek. Or when they're speaking, they sound bar, with a donkey tone. And in reality, bar is the equivalent of blah, 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 blah. And that's what it means. It's all Greek to me. Now, let's dig in and let's see how this whole Greek thing got started. According to the Bible, the history of Greece begins with Noah. Yeah, believe it or not, it begins with Noah's middle son, Japhet. His fourth son was Javan. And Javan, according to historical evidence, Javan settled in the island or the coastlands of the Mediterranean Sea. They lived in the Isles of the Nation, as it was known before, a phrase that can also refer to the coastlines and not simply islands surrounded by water. Today, Greece occupies the southern part of the mountainous Balkan Peninsula and the islands near it. It lies between Ionian Sea to the west and the Aegean Sea to the east. The Mediterranean Sea is to the south. Its capital is Athens, named after the goddess Athena. And you guys will be able to see that if you come on our trip in October of next year. The Greek goddess Athena and the Greek god Poseidon both wanted to be the guardians of the city. So they have gift giving competition. Poseidon gave them a beautiful spring, but the water was salty and useless. Athena gave them an olive tree that gave food, oil, and wood. Women can always do a better job than men. She won, and the city became known as Athens. Poseidon won, but it would be likely that he has been Poseidonia, not quite the same ring. So we're going to stick with Athens. The name Greece comes from the word Greco, the name of the tribe or northwestern Greece. The Italians applied the name Greci to the inhabitants of Greece as a whole. That's how we have the name Greece today. Thank you to the Italian. Javan and the Greeks are mentioned early in the Bible. We see them at Joel chapter 3, verse 6. If you're in the audience and you're able to read um, the text on your TV, feel free to raise your hand and we will invite you to read it. If there are children in the room because they're off from vacation, please put a little star before their name so I can give them priority and they can help me read the Bible. Dee, would you mind reading Joel 3:6?
Sure. It says, "And the people of Judah and Jerusalem you have sold to the Greeks in order to remove them far from their territory."
There you go. Thank you. The first time that the word Greeks appears in the Bible. The Bible tells us that false religion will mix with the first century congregation after the apostle died. The Greek word used for apostasy is defined as standing off from, departing, or withdrawing. Let's see what Isaiah have to say about this. Isaiah 66:19. Ernest.
And that reads, I will set a sign among them, and I will send some of those who escaped to the nations to Tarshish, Pul, and Lud, those who draw the bow to Tubal and Javan, and to the faraway islands.
There you go. So there you have it. Again, reference to Noah's, I think, grandson, Javan, as it appears in the Bible, and another occasion where the word Greece appears. But by this time, you get the point. This is not hard. Nobody's going to argue whether the word Greece appears in the Bible. Okay? Okay. Often, in addition to the word Greece or Greek, you will hear the word Hellenistic. Hellenistic is used to refer to the Greeks, but this has nothing to do with the mythical god Helen of Troy. So please put an X on that because it's not connected. In the Christian Greek scriptures, the land is called Hellas and the people Hellenes. The Greeks themselves used those names starting several centuries before the Common Era, and they continue to do so today. Amazing. That's why their official name of Greece is the Hellenic Republic. And those of you who love study Greek and Roman history will confirm that this is as such. Now that we know how Greece got here and how it was named, let's talk about the beginning of the Greek culture. The Greek-speaking city-states were very independent, and the geography of the land had a lot to do with that. Many Greeks lived on islands, but on the mainland, the majority lived in small valleys that were surrounded by mountains. To get a better idea of the culture of the ancient Greece, let's watch a short video.
Art, philosophy, democracy, and heroes. These are just a few achievements of the legendary civilization known as ancient Greece. Ancient Greece was born on the shores of the Aegean Sea about 4,000 years ago. In over a millennium, it expanded to lands as far west as Spain and as far east as India. Throughout this age of empire, the ancient Greeks made political, militaristic, and cultural achievements that resonated long after their empire fell. Part of the ancient Greeks' legacy involved politics, one of which was the political system of Greece itself. Unlike many nations that were under unified rule, Greece was a collection of over 1,500 territories that acted as sovereign nations. Called city-states, these territories had their own rulers and sometimes fought each other. Another political development was the institution of the first large-scale democracy. Developed in the city-state of Athens, democratic rule was a way to give the Greek people representation and political power. The Greeks also earned a strong reputation for their military. The military helped expand the Greek Empire by establishing colonies overseas, and it protected Greece itself from foreign invaders like the Persian Empire. When such a threat occurred, city-states united to defend their homeland. Many Greeks, particularly in Sparta, took immense pride in their military and regarded their soldiers as heroes. Their heroism was often turned into legend thanks to literary works like the Iliad. War heroes also inspired the creation of the Olympics, which celebrated physical competition. Of all aspects of ancient Greek civilization, their cultural contributions left a considerable mark on the Western world. Particularly noteworthy were the ancient Greeks' art and architecture. They created incredible sculptural works, such as standing figures and reliefs. Plus, they developed 3 types of columns and incorporated them into structures like the Parthenon. This artistry was imitated by other civilizations and spread throughout the globe for thousands of years. How the Greeks interpreted the world was also reflected in other cultures. Greek religion, which was comprised of many anthropomorphic deities, helped shape the spiritual beliefs of the Etruscans and later the ancient Romans. Greek philosophy, which explored matters of reason, ethics, and natural law, influenced later civilizations' achievements in politics and science. Greek language made quite an impact as well. Ancient Greek, at about 3,400 years old, provided the basis of many modern languages. The English language alone has thousands of words with Greek roots. Ancient Greece's artistry, regard for heroes, and democratic rule left a considerable impression on world history. With contributions that lasted for millennia, the civilization of ancient Greece is nothing short of legendary.
Well, I hope that video helped to prepare the ground for what we're going to be watching today. Many Greek cities has two distinct and important locations. One of them is the Acropolis, which you see there on the screen, and the other one is the Agora. Does anybody know what the Agora means? Agora. Lori?
If I remember right, it was marketplace.
That is correct. Agora is for the word marketplace. So it was either the Acropolis, the center of the city, or the Agora, where Paul ended up preaching there when he first arrived in Athens. When we hear the term Acropolis, we may think of Athens, but many Greek cities have their own Acropolis. You got a Acropolis of Corinth. It was used as an area to worship gods because temples were often built there. And see, it was closer to heaven because of the height. It provided people the place to safely worship without being attacked. The word Acropolis, acro means highest. Think of acrobat in a circus. And polis means city, state. Sometimes it's named along with the name of the city. For example, Acropolis is Corinth. Let me show you another one. Well, this is an agora. Agora, as it was mentioned before, is a central public space. It literally means gathering or assembly. And agora was the center of athletic, artistic, business, and political life in the city. The term agoraphobia means fear of crowds or open spaces. Let's look at some other aspects in the life of the Greeks. Let's look at the area of education. In Sparta, education was almost entirely physical, and it was used to make soldiers. Young boys were taken from their parents at the age of 7 and assigned to barracks until the age of 30. Talking about volunteers. Spartan women, unlike their Athenian counterparts, received a formal education that was supervised and controlled by the states. Like the boys, much of the public schooling received by the Spartan women revolved around physical education. It's worth noting that Spartan education was primarily for the boys. However, until about the age of 18, women were also taught to run, to wrestle, to throw a disc, and also to throw a javelin. In addition to physical education, the young girls also were taught to sing, to dance, and to play instrument. The Spartan educational system for female was very strict because its purpose was to train future mothers of soldiers in order to maintain the strength of the Sparta military, which was essential for the Spartan defense and culture. Here you are, a painting by Raphael and this is the school of Athens. In Athens, Greek education was for males only, and its main goal was to produce good citizens. In Athens, the emphasis come primarily on things like literature, mathematics, and the art. Those with money will use a trusted slave and they will hire a tutor that will literally means child leader. In the Bible, it talks about this tutor. In fact, Paul uses the word tutor to reference to the Mosaic law. Can anybody help me read Galatians chapter 3, verse 24 to 25? Let's invite Glinette.
Yes, it reads, so the law became our guardian leading to Christ, so that we might be declared righteous through faith. But now that the faith has arrived, we are no longer under a guardian.
There you go. We are no longer under a tutor. And now you know the reason why Paul used that word and how he compared the truth or the good news about the kingdom to the Mosaic law. Very interesting. You probably know a lot about Greek poetry. Homer's Odyssey. This poetry was very popular, and poetry was also very popular in Athens, where students were required to memorize many poems. Paul himself, in his talk to an unknown God, he quoted from some of the poetry that was known to the Greeks. One of them is this 2000 movie, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? And this movie was based on Odyssey journey. And I think you recognize several of the characters. Of course, this was 24 years ago, but look how young they were. I'm not recommending that you watch the movie. I'm just making reference to something that you may have seen already. Homer's Iliad, it's another work of art that describes the final year of the Trojan War. I haven't read it. I'm going to watch a movie. I heard it's called Troy Story. Get it? That's Jim. That's Jim's humor. Instead of Toy Story, he said Troy Story. I miss you, Jim. Anyway, look at this. Should we open the attachment? The answer is no. Don't open any attachment. Bite the dust. Eat your heart out. Don't fall for that. Anyway, we talked briefly about the talk that Paul gave to an unknown God. The Apostle Paul, as I mentioned earlier, quoted a famous Greek poet, Aratus. And he quoted by saying, so we are also his children, from the poem Phenomena. Paul may have quoted from this Greek poet because speaker in Athens expected him to use classical quotation to back up what he was saying. If he didn't do that, he was going to be killed, because there was a law in Athens, in Greece, that you are not allowed to talk about foreign gods. And that's why Paul smartly quoted a Greek poet. Anyway, modern poetry today have many examples. I don't know if anybody recognized the word ode on a Grecian urn, among others. It's about 100 euros a day. What's a Grecian urn, you ask? About 100 euros a day. Anyway, let's move on to philosophy. Hey, we're talking about the Greeks. Philosophy was also very important in Athens in time throughout the entire country of Greece. Why? Because Grecian philosophers love to talk about the ultimate questions of life. Their views also serve to shape the religious views of the people. And we're going to be talking about that very shortly. Oh, we all scream for ice cream. That's what the Epicureans taught. They believed that experiencing pleasure was the ultimate goal in life. Believe it or not, that was a philosophy with its idea of let's eat and drink, for tomorrow we're all going to die, deny the idea or the hope of resurrection being taught by Christian. This was hard. I guess you could say it was the original. Anyway, Stoics are also appears in the Bible. They were the ones that took Paul from the Agora and they took them all the way to the Areopagus because they wanted to understand what was it that he was talking about. He was talking about something that nobody knew about, and to the Greeks, that was a great offense. Stoics believed that truly wise man was very serious and indifferent to pain or pleasure, completely different from the Epicurus. The name Stoic comes from the Stoa Poikile, literally painted porch, on a building in Athens where the philosopher Zeno taught. Stoics also did not believe in the resurrection. Speaking of being stoic, my wife and I went to the dentist the other day. She told the dentist, "No fancy stuff, doctor. No gas or needles or anything like that. Just pull the tooth and get it over with." "Whoa," said the dentist. "You're certainly stoic with tooth, is it?" She turned to me and said, "Show him the tooth, honey." Never mind. The problem of preaching or talking about something that the Greeks did not understand was a very serious. That's why Paul was dragged from the Agora all the way to the Acropolis, the Areopagus, for him to explain what he was talking about. What you're seeing right now is the painting located at the Museum of Art of New York City. It's called The Death of Socrates. Now, think about this. Now, Socrates in the 5th century BCE was a major influence of the Stoic, and he taught that immortality of the human was possible. He was put to death, as we see in the painting, by the famous French artist Jacques Louis David. His Athenian accusers cited two reasons for him to be put to death. Number one, failing to acknowledge the gods that the city acknowledges. And number two, and this is the more dangerous one, introducing new deities. He was forced to drink poison hemlock. And now you know why the Apostle Paul was dragged from the Agora. Many people think that poison hemlock comes from a tree by the same name. Poison hemlock is actually a cousin of the carrot, not the tree. But this is not a reason to stop eating your carrot, okay? There you go. In ancient Greece, it was also the time for famous scientists and mathematicians. One of the most famous was Pythagoras. You may remember him for the formula a squared plus b squared equals to c squared. An interesting thing about Pythagoras was his relationship with beans. Yes, you heard it right, beans. Pythagoras was a vegetarian who did not only abstain from meat, but he also did not eat beans either. This was because he believed that humans and beans were spawned from the same source, and he believed to eat a bean will therefore be like eating human flesh. Do you know that certain beans eaten with rice will turn into protein. Maybe that's what Pythagoras was talking about. His aversion to beans may have contributed to his death. Legend has it that he had to live in a cave for a time to hide from a dictator. Some accounts of his death describe him fleeing attackers who chased him until a field of flowering Java beans blocking his way. He refused to run any further, and then he was killed. Strange. Anyway, let's continue. Religion. Religion played a major role in the life of ancient Greeks. They invented gods and goddesses, and they told stories of them. Many of the gods described by the Greeks were often immoral and vindictive. They were an attempt to explain the chaos of the universe through human nature. They often resemble humans, but sometimes were huge and extremely powerful. They did most things like humans did. They could really be mean, deceitful, and vengeful. A little joke by Jim. Speaking of green gods, why just the other day my wife said that I had the body of a Greek god? And I say, why is that, honey? Oh, Buddha was not Greek. Never mind. Greek mythology contains mention of some half god, half human demigods. Perhaps the most famous of this is Heracles or Hercules, if you're talking to the Romans. It could be that the Bible was the inspiration for this, since it does mention being who were half human and half spirit creature. This is found in the book of Genesis, especially chapter 6. If you watch the tour, Noah, the great flood, we go into detail about that. If you go to chapter 6 and you read verse 1 to verse 13, it shows that prior to the flood, angelic sons of God came to earth, evidently materializing into human form and cohabiting with attractive women. What was the result? They produced what we call Nephilims or fellers, or those who cause others to fall down. The result of this unnatural union of spirit creatures and humans was an earth filled with immorality and violence. All of this was resolved by a global flood where Noah had to build an ark. Noah's final words when he closed the door of the ark was, "See you, fellers," or maybe not. Another poet, Hesiod, probably of the 8th century BCE, is credited with systematizing the multitude of Greek myth and legends in his book Theogony. According to Hesiod, there were more than 30,000 gods. Incoming joke. I am afraid that I have to admit that I really don't know that much about Greek mythology. In fact, my poor knowledge of Greek mythology has always been my Achilles elbow. The principal Greek gods were said to reside on the heights of Mount Olympus, located south of the town of Berea. And we're going to go there in our trip in October. In honor of the gods, magnificent temples were built. And to represent their gods, beautiful statues of marble and bronze were also made. The ruins of some of the most famous of these temples are to be found on the Acropolis of Athens and include in the Parthenon. And we invite you, friends, to join us on that trip. Today, 90% of the population of Greece is Christian Orthodox. Originally, it was part of the Catholic Church. The eastern bishop of the church were headquartered in Byzantine, whose name was changed to Constantinople after Constantine, but now it's called Istanbul, Turkey. And we're going to go there in 2026. They did not like being told what to do by the Pope in Western Rome. This created the Great Schism in 1054 CE. Pope Leon III in Rome excommunicated Michael Celarius, the Patriarch of Constantinople, and then he excommunicated Pope Leo in return. The Great Schism divided Christendom into Western Roman Catholic Church and Eastern Orthodox Church. If you didn't know, now you know. Does anybody know what the word Catholic means? Does anybody know what the word Catholic means? You can take a guess too. You can put it on the chat if you're not sure. What does the word Catholic means? Michael.
Hey, Stalin.
Hello.
Universal.
Universal. So the name universal actually meant the whole earth was worshiping united. But this is false Christendom. That's why they fall apart. In the Bible, it says that any kingdom divided is going to fall apart. The Great Break began permanent after Western Christians invaded Constantinople in 1204, as shown by this 1840 painting by the famous French artist Eugene Delacroix. You can see it at the Louvre Museum in France. Imagine that. The ancient Greeks were also big into oracles. Oracles were medium through whom the gods supposedly reveal hidden knowledge, and they have many followers. The most famous oracles occupied the temples at Delphi, Delos, and Dodona. Here, for a price, individuals receive answers to questions put to the oracle. The answers were usually ambiguous, very much like the horoscope, and they needed an interpretation by a priest. Don't be surprised if in the middle of the night you turn off your TV and there are people calling the psychics. It's the same thing. The most famous and profitable of all oracles was the Apollo, who just happened to be the Greek god of foreknowledge and wisdom. Yeah, sure. It was situated at Delphi, and it was consulted not only by the Greeks, but from every part of the land, also included foreigners, kings, and other rulers, all of them famous patrons. At Delphi, answers were given by the priest called Pythia, who seated herself on a golden tripod above a sham, where foul and poisonous vapors came out of the ground. Inspired by these vapors, while in a state of religious frenzy, uttered words which were then arranged by prophets, especially educated ones, were given to the inquirers. I think she was just simply high, or she had a demon. I mean, look at that face. Or she is constipated. One of the two. Anyway, the site of the temple is on top of a geological fault, and gases like ethylene are released. Ethylene is a known hallucinant. Many of the answers received were vague and sometimes susceptible to opposite interpretation. Those consulting the oracles pay handsomely for the vague and sometimes absolutely wrong information they receive. I was talking to a person who is in this business, and I said, hey, how do you ensure that your clients don't come back and hurt you or accuse you for stealing? He says, Stalin, is very simple. If I tell them that something was true in my book, I write it was false. If they come back to me and say, hey, you gave me the wrong information, I will say, what day do you come? What is your name? It says here that I told you false. I never told you true. You probably got confused or you probably forgot. What a ripoff. Another interesting story that involves the Greek authors of tragedy is this guy there on the screen. When seeking knowledge from the Oracle of Delphi, he was told that he will die by a falling object. So, what did he do? He stayed outside, and he died at the age of 67 when an eagle dropped a tortoise on his head. The eagle is said to have mistaken his baldness for a rock and tried to use it to crack the shell of his prey. If you have heard this fable before about the tortoise and the hare, but how about the tortoise and the no hair? Another joke by our dear friend Jim. Anyway, this treasury, the one you're seeing on the screen, was reconstructed by archaeologists. Delphi, the seat of the Oracle of Apollo, has been termed the Vatican of antiquity. Look at how beautiful that place looks like. Second only to the Oracle in Delphi, it's Delos. Delos was a sacred island said to be the birthplace of Artemis and Apollo. I'm not talking about the NASA rockets. I'm talking about the Greek gods. The island is unoccupied, and today no one is allowed to be born or die there. I wonder why. Anyway, the oldest oracle center was that of the god Zeus, and this is located in Dodona, where messages from Zeus were received from the rustling of the leaves of the sacred oak, which you see there on the screen. Healing shrines were also popular, and we will visit one in Corinth in our next tour. Something that you may remember or you may know about the Greeks is the festival that became as important as the Greek religion. What am I talking about? I'm talking about athleticism. I'm talking about competition in dramas, prayers, attracted persons from a wide area. And these festivals helped to unite politically divided city-states. And the most prominent were the Olympian Games. Let's watch the following video to learn more about the Olympics.
Thousands of years in the making, what began as part of a religious festival honoring the Greek god Zeus in the rural Greek town of Olympia has today become the greatest show of sporting excellence on Earth. The inception date in 776 BC became the basis for the Greeks' earliest calendar, where time was marked in 4-year increments called Olympiads. What could it be? Why, it's the Olympic Games, of course. Competition fosters excellence, or so thought the ancient Greeks. In addition to sporting events, contests were held for music, singing, and poetry. You can read about them all yourself in classical literary works like Homer's Iliad and Virgil's Aeneid. Even mythical heroes appreciate a good contest every now and then, wouldn't you say? For the first 13 games, the ancient Greek Olympics featured just one event, the 200-yard dash, but over time, new exciting contests like boxing, chariot and mule racing, and even a foot race where the competitors wore a full suit of armor enticed many hopeful champions into the Olympic Stadium. The combined running, jumping, wrestling, javelin throwing, and hurling the discus event known as the pentathlon inspired world-class competition. And the pancration, a no-holds-barred fight where only biting and eye gouging were prohibited, ensured the toughest men were victorious. And victorious they were. Nobody tops the local baker Coroebus, who in 776 BC became the very first Olympic champion. And we'll never forget Orsippus of Megara, the 720 BC Olympic victor who tore away his loincloth so he could race unimpeded, inaugurating the ancient Greek tradition of competing in the nude. Now there's a winning streak, if ever we've seen one. But all good things must end. In 391 AD, the Christian Roman Emperor Theodosius banned pagan practices, so the world soon bid a fond farewell to the Olympic Games.
But just like those early pancration athletes, you can't keep a good one down. And 1,500 years later, in 1896, the modern Olympic Games kicked off in Athens, Greece. Today, the Summer and Winter Olympics bring international world-class athletes together by the thousands, uniting fans by the billions for the world's foremost sporting competition. Citius, Altius, Fortius, 3 cheers for the Olympics.
It's interesting that in the documentary that I just showed you, the winner's prize consisted of a simple garland or crown of leaves. The prize was often displayed at the finish line next to the umpire, inspiring participants in the foot races to exert themselves to the utmost as they kept their eyes on the prize. Does that sound familiar? Of course it does. Paul wrote about this and other illustration like boxing, running, and you can see that when he was living in that area, most of these sports, as you saw in the documentary, were very, very popular. The Olympic Games were celebrated every 4 years and have found profound religious significance. Religious sacrifices and the worship of the Olympic fire was prominent features of the festival. No wonder that athletes, before they compete, they're always doing some type of a religious body language signage. Despite the name, Olympia is nowhere near Mount Olympus in northern Greece. As mentioned in the video, the Greeks began their famous Olympic athletic contest in honor of Zeus in the year 776 BCE. The tradition continued until 391 when they were banned by, quote, Christian, quote, Emperor Theodosius, who prohibited all pagan, meaning non-Christian practices in the Roman Empire. That's an oxymoron. Anyway, Olympia was also known for the magic ivory and gold statues of Zeus in his temple. The statues of Zeus at Olympia was so impressive that it is considered one of the 7 wonders of the Asian world. And by the way, we have that tour available on our YouTube channel. The temple of Zeus was apparently destroyed around the year 426 CE by Theodosius II while enforcing a ban on pagan festivals. There were over 70 temples in total at Olympia, as well as treasuries, altars, statues, and other structures dedicated to many deities at the Olympia site. 70 temples. Wow. Here's an incoming joke. Speaking of temples, why just the other day my wife said to my body was like a Greek temple. What's that, honey? Because it's in ruins. Never mind. The Palestria at Olympia was destroyed to the training of was devoted destroy was devoted to the training of wrestlers and other athletes. Some of the rooms would have also included an oiling place. And I think in the Met, there are little containers where the oil was placed. These rooms were where the wrestlers coated themselves in olive oil and sprinkle themselves with fine sand. The oil, the sand, and the sweat make the athletes uh, very difficult to grasp. Can you think of a sport where people put oil on their body to make them more aerodynamic and efficient? What sport today people use oil on their body? There you go. Laurie, very good. Boxing, Shantae, wrestling. Very, very, very good. So you know where this comes from. It comes from the Greeks. Let me see, what do we have here? Can you believe that what you see there, you see those bronze statues of Zeus that were erected on this basis and were paid for by fines on those who have been caught cheating at the Olympic Games. So cheating is not something new. It comes all the way from the Greeks. The names of the cheating athletes were written on the base of each statue to serve as a warning to all. Besides the fines, they could also be beaten and kicked out of the game depending on how severe their violation was. Sorry, Canseco? Yeah, Canseco, I think is the guy who used asteroids. The Olympic flame today is lit from the rays of the sun to demonstrate its purity. The process is very simple. A parabolic mirror is used, acting as a giant magnifying glass to catch the sun's ray, which stripped of all camera film made from acetate, which catch fire easily, placed inside the ball. So now you know. Friends, it's going to be close to an hour. If you want to take this opportunity to go to the restroom, that will be great. I'm going to do the same. But I have a joke before you go. Here we go. Here's the joke. You know how they lit the Olympic torch. Then it stayed lit all the way to the opening ceremony, right? It occasionally goes out, but very rarely. Well, it's like they say, it's hard to put a grease fire. No, never mind. Thank you, Jim. We'll be right back. Your mics have been open, or you can open your mic, and I will return shortly. Let's have a bio break. Alrighty, we are back. I hope you were able to stretch your legs. Oh, I didn't know these had music. Greek music. Oh man, Jim is funny. Anyway, let's continue. Ancient Greece was one of the dominant civilization in the Mediterranean and also the world for hundreds of years. Even when the Roman Empire conquered them, the Greeks still had a major influence in them. Greece's rise to power became apparent when it was mentioned in the book of Daniel, chapter 2, verse 32, chapter 2 to verse 32 and verse 45, which interpret Nebuchadnezzar's dream of the great image. The rise to Greece to world power began with an attack by an existing world power. You see, it was the Medes and the Persian that attacked Darius, but it was defeated by the small army of the Greeks Athenian. The story of the Battle of Marathon is an interesting one. The World Book Encyclopedia calls it one of the most important battles in the history of Western civilization. What happened? Well, a powerful force of Persian cavalry and infantry left for Egypt and were headed to Athens. Because of a clever Greek military strategy, the result was a tremendous defeat for Darius the Persian. Casualties reached about 6,400 men, where the Athenians only lost 192 men. According to the legend, the news of the Greek victory was sent back to Athens by a messenger. A young Greek soldier, which legend said ran 26.2 miles, 42 kilometers from Marathon to Athens. And when he got there, he cried out, "Rejoice, we conquer." And then he dropped dead. And there's the picture right there. This is said to be the first marathon, hence the origin of the word, which set the precedent for the modern day long distance foot race as we know it. I told you we are all Greeks. Darius, son of Xerxes, thought to be Esther's Ahasuerus, who's determined to avenge his father's defeat. So, starting in 484 BCE, Xerxes, Esther's husband, spent 3 years assembling what was reportedly one of the greatest armies that have ever marched on the face of the planet. According to the Greek historian Herodotus, the combined strength of Xerxes' land and naval forces amounted to an incredible 2,317,600 warriors. The Bible foretold the rise of Xerxes and the events leading up to this attack in Daniel chapter 11, verse 2. Xerxes' great army headed west, but first have to cross the Hellespont, now called Dardanelles, a narrow strait of water that separates Asia from Europe, and you see it there in the red circle. Xerxes will build a boat bridge to cross over the water. If you've seen the tour about Paul, you may have seen this ingenuity. The bridge will be built on top of boats and it will make it a floating bridge, pretty much like you've seen it today. Xerxes won some battles, but eventually was defeated at the Battle of Salamis. Here, it was said the overconfident Xerxes erected a throne to watch the battle, only to be surprised when his army and navy were soundly defeated. After several more defeats, the Persian forces gave up and left Greece. This is connected to the gift that Nahum wanted to give the king 10,000 pieces of silver. Anyway, go watch the Esther tour to learn more details about this. Golden Age of Athens. Athens now gained leadership in Greece because of its strong navy. The period that followed down to about 431 BCE was called the Golden Age of Athens, when the most famous work of art and architecture was produced. Pericles promoted the art and literature, and it was mainly through his effort that Athens got the reputation for being the educational and cultural center of the ancient Greek world. He started an ambitious project that generated most of the surviving structures on the Acropolis, including the Parthenon. This project beautified and protected the city, showed off its glory, and gave work to a bunch of people. Hippocrates was an ancient Greek physician who lived during this time and is traditionally regarded as the father of medicine. He is mainly known or remembered for the Hippocratic Oath, which it is suspected he did not really write. Here's the oldest copy dating back to the year 275 CE, which doctors claim that's what they're doing for the patient. But the patient Bill of Rights killed the Hippocratic Oath. But peace and prestige were not to last long, because the resentment of the Athenian power by the Spartan and fear of the Athenian expansion, the famous Peloponnesian War broke out. It ran from 431 to 404. And you can see here in the map the different battles that the Greeks were fighting among itself. But this set the stage by one man in Macedonia. Does anybody know who Philip II of Macedonia was? Does anybody know who Philip II of Macedonia? Who was he? Alex King.
I'm gonna take a guess, but was it Alexander's father?
That's right. That's right. The emerging power of the Macedonian under Philip II takes over in the year 338 before our Common Era. He is the new king who's going to restore Greek's beauty. However, he was assassinated only 2 years by a jealous bodyguard. But the story is just getting started. The greatest and best known Greek of all time, the GOAT, Alexander III of Macedon. But he was not ordinary Alexander, no middle of the road Alexander, no pretty good looking blonde Alexander. He was Alexander the Great. Let's see why he went from Alexander III to Alexander the Great. Anyway, Alexander III was born in Pella, Macedonia, in 356 BC from King Philip II and Queen Olympia. Although legend had it his father was none other than Zeus, the ruler of the Greek gods. You know, parents would lie to their kids. At age 12, Alexander showed impressive courage, and he tamed the wild horse Bucephalus, an enormous stallion with a furious demeanor. The horse became his battle companion for most of Alexander's life. There's nothing impossible to him who will try. Alexander was 13. Philip called on the great philosopher Aristotle to tutor his son. Aristotle sparkled and fostered Alexander's interest in literature, science, medicine, and philosophy. When Philip II was assassinated in 336 BCE, Alexander assumed the throne, and with all the Greek states now united under Macedonian rule, Alexander embarked on the great campaign his father has been planning, dreaming, and thinking of, the conquest of the mighty Persian Empire. On the bank of the Granicus River, Alexander won his first victory over the Persian king Darius II. And you see Alexander in the circle. Alexander was, according to one historian, particularly conspicuous by his shield and the plume of feathers that overshadow his helmet. He was very superstitious. Anyway, to each his own, you know? Some people wear their underwear backwards when they're playing the final game of the season finale. Anyway, nothing can stop Alexander's, and the Persians were not prepared for the suddenness and fierceness of this Macedonian attack. The painting that you're seeing right now is today at the city of Pompeii, Naples, Italy. It's actually a mosaic of the Battle of Isis. You see Alexander right here, and you see the face of Darius. He looks scared. After the Battle of Isis, Alexander did not continue on his pursuit of Darius. Rather, Alexander turned his attention to Tyre. The Bible talks about this city in the book of Ezekiel and the book of Zechariah. It talks about the destruction of the city of Tyre. Ezekiel even wrote that the walls, the towers, the house, and the very dust of Tyre would be thrown in the very midst of the water. Were those prophecies fulfilled? Well, Alexander will use those ruins. He will use the rubble of the mainline to actually construct a bridge, exactly as the Bible has foretold. The strategy was a total success, and the city of Tyre fell. Today, you can see that the caseway has widened, and now houses live in the area. This is an actual satellite picture of a Bible prophecy being fulfilled. More proof that what Jehovah says will happen. Realize that Alexander could have leveled the island of Tyre, just like Nebuchadnezzar did to the mainline of Tyre, but who needs two flat tires? So he decided to spare Tyre, and I never get tired of this. Another joke by our dear friend Jim. Anyway, Alexander next entered Jerusalem, where historian Charles Rowling says in his Ancient History that Alexander did not destroy Jerusalem as he has done with other cities. What is the reason? The reason is that when Alexander reached the city of Jerusalem, the high priest showed him the passage of the prophecy of Daniel, which speaks about him. Alexander loved the admiration and the fact that now he's being compared to a leopard with 4 wings. Before Alexander left Jerusalem, he assembled the Jews and bid them ask for any favor they will request. Alexander then continued south to Egypt, which, weary of the Persian yoke, greeted him as the liver. At the mouth of the Nile, he founded the city of. In Egypt, Alexander founded the city of, which we're going to visit in the month of October. Laurie,
Alexandria.
there you go. The city of Alexandria. But he wasn't happy with the city of Alexandria. He wanted something else. He continued on his conquest of Persia. And guess where he will come? Guess where he will destroy the Medes and the Persian Empire? He will do it in the city of Babylon. By the way, we have a tour in our YouTube channel, A Pronouncement Against Babylon. Please check it out, completely free. It talks more about this. Babylon simply surrenders and welcome Alexander. For those of you who have come with me on this tour, I have a short video just showing that main entrance. When Alexander enters Babylon, he is in love. Oh yeah, he is in love. He loved that city and he wants to make it his capital, his new capital. Anyway, he continues to India. In India, he meets King Porus at the Battle of Hydaspes in the river 326. Porus charged Alexander's forces with elephants and fought so bravely with his troop that after defeating Porus, Alexander made him ruler over a larger region that he previously held. Alexander's horse, Bucephalus, was killed in this battle, and Alexander named one of the two cities he founded after the Battle of Bucephala after him. Can you imagine a battle with elephants? Wow, that must have been crazy. Anyway, after Alexander gets to India, his people told him, listen, I'm tired. I want to go home. So he heads back because his troops were simply tired of winning. Can you believe it? They were tired of winning. Anyway, we have conquered enough. We want to go home. On his way back, Alexander thought that many of those whom he has entrusted will rule had abused their power, and so he had them executed. He was also very upset to find that the tomb of Cyrus the Great has been vandalized. He was a big fan of Cyrus the Great and had the tomb restored to its previous condition. When Alexander returned to Babylon, something happened. According to the book of Daniel, chapter 8, verses 5 and 7, it says that Alexander's quick rise to world domination was actually foretold in the scripture in the book of Daniel. He was determined to make Babylon a great city once again, but he forgot what Jehovah said. Jehovah said that Babylon must become an overthrown Sodom and Gomorrah, and she will never be inhabited. Sorry, Alexander, you're not that great in front of Jehovah. So what happened? A female mosquito at the age of 32 will kill the great Alexander of malaria. It is somehow ironic that Alexander was viewing as being protected by the god in Greece, Egypt, and India. With Alexander's death, what will happen next? Alexander did not leave behind a direct qualified successor because he killed them all. He did have a number of generals, too many to be exact, 72. And they will have a civil war fighting among themselves. And at the end, only 4 of them will actually exist. And you will see it there. And friends, this is where the phrase the king of the north and the king of the south will come from. Those to the south of Jerusalem will be considered the king of the south. Those located to the north of Jerusalem will be considered the king of the north. So from now on, these two areas will be fighting one another to conquer the city of Jerusalem. The Bible foretold that this was going to happen in Daniel chapter 8, verse 8. All the while, Greek beliefs previously unknown to the Jews gradually began to take root. This included the pagan teaching of the immortality. Remember that Socrates made it popular. And also that there is life underworld where people will be tormented after death. And this is what you call hell. And all of that was included at the main religion, the Catholics. Anyway, this guy, Antiochus the Fourth, tried to put an end to the Jewish religious community altogether by introducing Greek religion and the worship of Greek gods. He outlawed Jewish religious rites, traditions, and ordered the worship of Zeus as the supreme god. He persecuted those who would not submit to his demand. He entered the Holy of Holies in the temple in Jerusalem and desecrated the sanctuary. He even offered unclean pigs on the altar, and then he polluted the whole building by sprinkling it with water that pigs had been boiled in. He then dedicated the temple of Zeus. Jewish tradition had taught that these were disgusting things associated with the desolation prophesied by the book of Daniel. But they were wrong. These prophecies given by Jesus Christ did not apply to the Greeks. They apply to the Romans. The Romans were the disgusting things that will cause desolation. And this prophecy will be fulfilled in the year 70 when the temple was destroyed. The tyranny of Antiochus led to the Maccabean revolt by the Jews. The 8 books of the Maccabees tell the story of the Maccabees families, the leaders of the Jewish rebellion against the Greek influence. The first 2 are included in the Old Testament, used only by the Catholics and Orthodox churches. Those books are not inspired. They are not, however, included in our Old Testament books. Even in the Protestant Bible, they're not included. The books of the Maccabees are said to be apocryphal. Apocryphal means that they were not inspired to be part of the Bible, and their origin is in question. The revolt included many battles, and after the final victory, the Maccabees entered Jerusalem in triumph and ritually cleansed the temple, reestablishing traditional Jewish worship there in the year 165. The 2 books of the Maccabees describe in detail the rededication of the temple in Jerusalem and the lighting of the menorah. This is celebrated annually by the Jews as the lighting of the menorah. This is celebrated annually by the Jews as Patty.
It's Hanukkah.
Hanukkah, and that is taking place nowadays. Thank you, Patty. It looks like you were paying attention. You're not sleeping yet. Anyway, can anybody give me a hand and help me read John chapter 10, verse 22 and 23? John, let's invite the Dunn family. The Dunn family is a family of 5, and I don't know who's going to read.
At that time, the festival of dedication took place in Jerusalem. It was winter time, and Jesus was walking in the temple in the colonnade of Solomon.
There you go. Thank you. Thank you, brother Dan. In fact, friends, what he just read is noteworthy because the Bible does not talk about Hanukkah by name, but it's called the Festival of Dedication, as you see it right there on the screen. When we read John chapter 10, verse 22 and 23, it is wintertime, and Jesus was walking in the temple in the colonnade of Solomon. Clearly, this festival was already being celebrated in Jesus' day and apparently by Jesus himself. Well, I hope you enjoy the first of our 2 Greek tours. On our next tour called It Is Still All Greek to Me, we go to Greece and visit many of the cities and islands mentioned in the Bible and a few that are not. So I hope to see you tomorrow. You only have a couple of hours to stay awake if you want to wait for the new year. There's fireworks being used around here in Florida where it's not prohibited. Friends, we thank you for all the subscription and all the membership that we're receiving on our YouTube channel. Please, 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 we have lots of videos. This video is free. It's going to be there. You can watch it 24/7. If you're unable to sleep, you can watch one of our tours, or you can invite people to your house and they can watch it as well. On behalf of my wife, myself, and the entire team at my virtual Bible tour group, we say thank you for all the support you have been given to us. If you need our physical address, feel free to copy it directly from the screen. I hope you had a good time. I had a fantastic time, and I did all of this for our dear friend Jim. I'm going to stop the recording